Com.
I mean, it's really important for us to remember our history. You know, unless you're one of the first Americans, you came from someplace else. Somebody brought you.
That probably is me, absolutely. Because I'll tell you what, if you look at some of the reservations that you've approved, you, sir, in your great wisdom have approved, I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me. And they don't look like the Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. And a lot of people are laughing at it, and you're telling how tough it is, how rough it is to get approved. When you go up to Connecticut and you look, now, they don't look like Indians to me, sir.
You don't have to live in the slums to care, Melanie. You don't have to try to be something you're not. God, I can't stand this. Trying to be something I'm not? Trying to be proud of my African heritage? That's being something I'm not, then fine. That's being something I'm not, then fine. I'd rather be dead than be like you. Stuck-up nigger who's ashamed of being black. My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois. Was a full-blooded Iroquois. Was a full-blooded Iroquois. Was a full-blooded Iroquois. I know all of that, Mama. Because of the blood of the people who never screamed or begged or apologized for what they were. They asked only one thing of this world: to be allowed to be. And I learned through the blood of these people. Black isn't beautiful. It isn't ugly. It isn't kinky hair. It isn't straight hair. Black is just black. It broke my heart when you changed your name. I gave you my grandmother's name, a woman who bore 9 children, educated them all, who held off 6 white men with a shotgun when they tried to drag one of her sons off to jail for not knowing his place. And you had to reach into an African dictionary to find a name that would make you proud.
Okay, everyone. Now, as I've stated numerous times before, I am well aware that many of you were taught to believe line after line in today's society of America concerning this topic and various types of correlating information by design. But I would like for you to note that the actual quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. The so-called African Americans of today's society are yet still struggling to come to grips with their true identities, cultures, heritage, and especially their actual history, simply because of how they were taught to believe in a fictitious story that claimed that all people of color in America are somehow descendants of Africans. The problem with this story is that there is no verifiable evidence of it actually being truthful information. I'll get into why here shortly. And yet, there are many so called blacks or so called African Americans that are willing to go to their graves with a very strong belief in this falsified information. See, this is why I single-handedly write, edit, and produce my content for viewers like yourself, in hopes that you would take the initiative to literally note all of the information that I present throughout my content, so that you may be inspired to conduct your own research using those same key factors manifested within my works. Now, with all of that being said, let's go back in time a little to where this fictitious propaganda was cultivated and implemented into our mindsets as a fact of one-sided historic information. Melville Jean Herskovich was born on September 10th, 1895, in Bellefontaine, Ohio, to two Jewish immigrant parents who immigrated from parts of Europe to North America during the mid-1800s. His mother, Henrietta Hart, was an immigrant from Germany, and his father, Herman Herskovich, was an immigrant from Hungary. Before becoming a teenager, the family moved to El Paso, Texas in 1905. Then, soon after his mother abruptly passed away from a mysterious illness, Melville and his father moved to Erie, Pennsylvania, where Melville later graduated from Erie Senior High School in 1912. Melville began his college studies at the University of Cincinnati, while simultaneously taking rabbinical studies at the Hebrew Union College, Cincinnati campus, as traditionally suggested by his family, being as though the college is a Jewish institution of religion. When the United States involved themselves in the conflict known as World War I,
Yo, yo, yo. No, I just had to get a mic check. Alright. But do y'all see everything is over here? These niggas are going to school over here. They trying to make us think we in the wrong spot. As y'all can see, this Dane Calloway, big shout outs, Dane. And for the problems that's going on with the Pan Africans and the FBA, I mean, we don't have to pick a side. FBA, Pan Africanism, we don't have to pick a side. Like you said, as long as we know our shit, our personal dealings. But then as a whole collective, and we all saying the same thing. Because these tribes are connected, bro. They going from south to north, south to east to west, traveling the whole thing. Africa, blur the lines between the American Indians and the Africans was the stupidest shit you could do because these are the strongest people. All bullshit aside, these are the strongest people, the Indians and the Africans. So the best thing to do was turn these two powers against each other. Hey, go subscribe to Dane and me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like the politics. You gonna pick a side. We knowing it's two sides of the two wings of the same bird that's flying into chaos. But our bird flying into the sun, flying off into the sunset.
On July 28, 1914, history loves to state that Melville allegedly quelled his studies to enlist in the, quote, Army's Medical Corps and headed off to Europe. Now, keep in mind that his mother was from Germany and his father from Hungary, in which both places, including Bulgaria,
This always happened like this. Foreigners coming over here doing the worst and then claiming it as discoveries and all that shit. That's fucked up. He acting. All actors.
and the Ottoman Empire fought against Russia, Italy, France, Japan, Romania, Great Britain, and of course the United States. What's very noteworthy here is which side of the conflict Melville allegedly subscribed to, because there is no actual records of him enrolling in the United States Army in the first place. Yeah, and I'm just getting started here. Now, when he returned to North America, Melville transferred to the University of Chicago at a time where anthropology was heavily influenced by the deceitful hidden agendas of industrialism, along with political European colonialism, where pseudoscientific theories were not only praised by one particular group of people.
See, and this is still like the introduction to, this is when Hitler and them got done fucking up they shit. And then they come over here migrating. The white immigrator, Russian communists or what forgot the name. This is deep. They in New York, Chicago, New York. President of the Rockefeller Foundation. These are people who was running from the plague, so to speak. Running from the plague and then lying to other people. Lying to other people, man. Look, they get mad because when they act and they dress up in costumes and all type of shit. But then when you call it out, they get real mad. But bro, you was playing anyway.
But justified for its subjugation of all non-white people. Before World War I began, in a speech directed to accredited businessmen, President Woodrow Wilson stated that henceforth public policy will be geared to providing a public education tailored to producing industrial workers who did not question orders and were skilled in only basic manual labors. President Woodrow Wilson stated that henceforth public policy will be geared to providing a public education tailored to producing industrial workers who did not question orders and were skilled in only basic manual labors, and that a liberal education will be reserved only for a small elite. By the early 1900s, American industrialists recognized that compulsory public education was the most useful means to socially engineer the American population to suit the purposes of industrial capitalism. Local networks of corporate foundations, university education and psychological departments, educational accrediting boards, and governmental agencies arose to oversee the implementation of the blueprint for this ambitious but yet so devastatingly evil social engineering project. These entities included organizations such as the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, the Columbia Teachers College, the University of Chicago, the National Training Labs, the National Education Association, and the U.S. Office of Education, now known as the Department of Education. Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, and Henry Ford were the key contributors and introductional architects of this American educational system of forced schooling. According to Lee D. Baker, an author and a cultural anthropologist out of Duke University, he admitted that the 19th century physical anthropologists drew specious correlations between anatomical features and supposed behavioral traits of the various races. So in other words, these immigrants of Jewish or other European or African descent of the 19th century, or rather the 1800s, purposely created and cultivated the science of anthropology with highly regarded racial discriminatory, very identical to the pseudoscientific concepts designed and utilized by Francis Galton that he called eugenics, right along with his predecessor.
See, and that's what I be talking about. They ain't doing a good job of exposing the lies on document, on paper, on, shit you can prove. But also, I'm proving the fact that the health and all of the information that they giving us, just like Dane, is a detriment to our future. It makes no sense to follow a different species or creature or whatever we want to call ourselves, beings with different biology, different geology. It really don't make no sense. And being this strict, you walk your path how you walk it, doing this, lying in a mass message, mass propaganda and shit like that. Bro, yo, so you gotta pay for that. You have to pay for that. Oh, and then yes, for all you gullible, vulnerable people, man. Tell me, not all of them is like that. Not all, like, bro, shut up. It's petty as hell to think not all of them is like that. But we in this system can't do what we want to do. Need to do when we need to do it. And you got elders up here talking about we Pan-African, we African. Bro, get out of here, bro. Take that shit back to the shit where you got it from, that white man. Hell man, my bad. Hell man. Hey, when they tell y'all the truth, everything come from the dark and the light. So how can we truly be biased? See, you learning some people's ways.
Charles Darwin with his theory of evolution and natural selection, in which I mentioned more about this on my documentary called What's the Real Identity of an African American? I highly recommend that you watch that video as well. Now, getting back to Melville, he abruptly halted his studies at the Hebrew Union College. At Melville, he abruptly
Have y'all ever asked yourselves this? How does a Jewish immigrant know all about African history, but ain't got no elders, no ancestors? That's African. Alcubulanian, whatever the fuck.
halted his studies at the Hebrew Union College and then moved on to complete his graduate studies at Columbia University. What's very important to note here is while working on his master's and PhD, Melville found himself under the guidance of his professor named Franz Boas, a German immigrant from Minden, Germany, who migrated to North America during the year of 1887. Franz Yuri Boas was considered to be the sole author of American anthropology. In fact, he was dubbed as the grandfather of American anthropology by his self-proclaimed significant students, with Melville being one of them. As a professor of anthropology at Columbia University beginning in 1899, Franz heavily influenced many prominent people that we know of today, all the way up until his death on December 21st, 1942, and some of whom shares the same hue of complexion as you and I. Franz had his own hidden agenda, but history loves to paint the picture as if it was done for the better good, when in fact it was designed to upkeep the continuation of manipulative indoctrination. For example, Franz promoted an idea that Negroes residing in America are all somehow descendants of Africans in Africa, based solely on the fact that we all share the same hue of complexion, and that's it, meaning that's all of the evidence he had. Now keep in mind that this was the first time ever in history where people overheard rumors that Negroes are somehow Africans now. Then, the Harvard-taught sociologist and one of the co-founders of the NAACP and the first so-called person of color to even earn a doctorate at this time, named W.E.B. Du Bois, took this fictitious idea to new heights, being as though he was considered to be a person of color, providing another side of social engineering influence amongst people that shared his same hue of complexion. In fact, Franz Boas influenced W.E.B. Du Bois in his teachings, even while being a professor of sociology, economics, and history at Atlanta University. Franz taught and told Melville Herskovits, along with his other students, and even W.E.B. Du Bois, what to do and what not to do by sending private letters back and forth throughout the years of the early 1900s. Then soon after his fictitious idea transitioned into a plan, it was later implemented into U.S. history books, systematically. But of course, Franz had assistants, and the majority of this assistance is credited to Melville, being as though he began to create the anthropometric studies of the so-called African Americans, while simultaneously releasing science fictional and general fictional books, like for example, The Cattle Complex in East Africa in 1926. This science of anthropology dramatically changed once Melville introduced his out-of-Africa theory, during a time when biological theories still prevailed in anthropology during the late 1920s, in which the underlying belief was that so-called blacks were genetically inferior to whites. Now, in order to draw all of the credit and attention to his own work for possible federal funding, Melville mysteriously but yet purposely had a falling out with W.E.B. Du Bois and began to state that Du Bois's work is inaccurate and filled with propaganda, sabotaging Du Bois's, quote, Encyclopedia Africana.
Come on, dang, drop that shit. Hey, he filled the. Wow. Hey, filled W.E.B. Du Bois up with fake information. W.E.B. Du Bois was running with it. He thought he was. It's just like the religion thing with y'all, Pan Africans, and you people who just can't let go of the titles, bro. I know I'm black, and all races come from Africa. Hey, you right. You right when you thinking how they thinking. The f- And that's just like today too. Like, and I'm doing this because Professor James Smalls, a Pan African, and Tariq Nasheed, who is FBA, Foundational Black American, James Small, who's W.E.B. Du Bois. But I ain't trying to look for no smoke or nothing. I'm just saying how we taking what they telling us and really expounding on it. Do you know what that actually means and what you're actually doing? Quantum physically. Let me just use y'all shit so y'all can understand what I'm saying. Because this is just how reality works. When W.E.B. Du Bois is taking this information and expounding on it, he's creating a parallel universe right next to the one. Because when they first told this shit, you're creating another paradigm in a being's mind that, okay, it's just like we going to school, we learn about Africa. Our parents been telling us about being Indian. Our parents have told us about being Indian, but when we go to school, they tell us about being African. And I go to college with this mind frame too, and they still on the African shit. And then I had this talk with my family, my grandparents and my parents, and I'm arguing with them because I have the African paradigm, which is not my fucking paradigm, or the Afro Afrocentric or whatever they want to call it thought, opposed to my organic American Indian thought. So you creating these universes to where it's either a lose or a win. You getting swallowed up or you prospering through it. But like Dane saying, dude came back out and said W.E.B. Du Bois was spewing propaganda because they are the masters of deceit.
Project by burning its credibility straight to the ground. Soon after that, Melville gained higher political power.
It's easy to do that when your information is made up. Ain't nothing to back it. It's a fake foundation. Black Lives Matter, fake foundation. LGBT, fake foundations. Serving no purpose for nobody. Serving a bunch of confusion. And they winning off our confusion. Y'all gotta be bullshitting me.
Then quickly received funding from wealthy private foundations and multiple federal government agencies, like the National Research Council, for example, which was established by special request from President Woodrow Wilson in 1916. What's very important to note here is Du Bois's reputation was purposely attacked by the same people that established it in the first place. In other words, Du Bois pledged himself.
See? Told you that shit is a trap. When you ain't paying attention to what somebody's saying, you just following their ways. You like, yeah, this gotta be it. That's that's most of the time not it. This is the idolatry we talking about.
itself under a form of order by a particular prominent group of wealthy Jews to help assist with manipulating the minds of those he could reach. And as soon as that goal was met, DuBose's entire operation was shut down. And even DuBose himself tried his very best to bring multiple prominent people of color down along with him. Side note, you would consistently see DuBose and Booker T. Washington side by side for a very particular reason. And by the way, it is not a coincidence that soon after these so-called black men visited each and every prosperous Black Wall Street across America, these areas dubbed
Black Boule, the black sellouts. Niggas be ignoring them. We hate them organically. Cause y'all ain't, man, hey.
as Negro or Black Wall Streets were immediately destroyed in more ways than just one. Now, around this time, Melville was single-handedly emerging as an iconic figure in America. But the so-called funding that he received that I mentioned earlier was not to help him with researching and discovering publicly verifiable evidence, as the story loves to claim. No, the funding was yet an advancement of his salary, set up for him to be paid to create and produce a story that millions of people were unfamiliar with. What I mean by that is, Melville is solely responsible for expanding the lines of storytelling, in which in turn it was later considered to be American history, by completely reversing the records of historic information by creating a fictional story about African slaves immigrating to the Americas by way of the Spaniards during the 1500s. This story is known as the Middle Passage. However, prior to Melville's fictional story, no information existed in history that clearly mentioned that the so-called Negroes of the American lands literally came from Africa. It was said that Melville allegedly took a trip to somewhere in Africa, meaning that there is absolutely no record of this, just a story, gathered up a few artifacts from there, observed a few tribes and a few cultures, and dubbed it as Africanism, then traveled back to the US, wrote a book called The Myth of the Negro Past, and published it in 1942 in the fictional section, where he claimed that the people of color in America somehow lost connection with their cultural past during the Middle Passage from Africa to the Americas.
Meaning not real. Fiction. Come on, man.
So the question remains, why was Melville instructed and paid to create such a fictional story that was later dubbed as facts? Then, why would people that did not originate from this land, but fought and died to immigrate to it and colonize it, try to dominate your thinking by indoctrinating your mind into believing that you belong to somewhere other than your own home? And if you choose to believe it, you just may lose yourself and everything you own. Now, why is it important to tell you where your ancestors derived from? Because the truth lies in the knowledge of what this land really holds. And your children are the sole inheritors. But if you freely leave what is rightfully yours, then who becomes the beneficiary?
See, and that's real. That's real. I ain't on no side. I'm the nigga saying, look at this. Y'all arguing about some straight bullshit when it'd be more convenient and make way more sense for us to be together. But if our differences is in the way of that, so be it. Okay, cool. You got where you come from, we got where we come from. But I ain't picking no sides. That's just some more confusion to have a nigga against his peoples. So yeah, when I first seen it, it didn't make no sense to me. But seemed like we want reparations for what though? Yeah, it can help enhance the skill and magnitude of our shadow, but with the skills and our knowledge and everything, they still hate us, and we so called at the bottom. Let's check pieces of this out too.
And said, nah, nigga, listen. That means pale. That's coming from white. That is a Latin word that means we need it now. We need it now. The word black is B-O-A-C. That is a Latin word that means pale. That's coming from white. They're lying to you. Black is white. White is black. When you look at the color scheme, black is creating all the colors.
I've been new. That's why I'm correlating what he's saying. It's just certain shit that you know is the truth.
They lie, man. Latin is the problem. This English language ain't nothing but Latin. Trace it right back to their Latin languages. See what they do. They took our indigenous tongue from our great-great-grandmothers and said, nah, nigga, listen, you gonna speak English. You gonna learn that. And you gonna worship our God. I don't care about your spirituality. That's what they did. In them Indian schools and all them churches they created by the Catholics. Okay? I could go on down. Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, it's all across the South. Right now. Still to this very day, none of them statues come down. Why? Because the Confederate war that was against the North ain't had nothing but our ancestors fighting. It wasn't enough white folks. They used our ancestors, lied and said they were going to pay. Okay? Lied. Those that got paid opened up Freeman bank accounts. The problem resides is that my people don't know who stopped Black Wall Streets in D.C., New York, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's somebody key that says I same human complexion that stopped that stuff. Right now, it's a problem. You gotta look at that. And do not look past your own people here. Our own people. Our own people. And it's sad. It's so sad because they see us. They know who we are. They know that we're the Indians of this land, the American Indians, not Native American. That term ain't even exist. American Indian existed and still does. Indigenous, autochthonous, primordial. All of that stuff existed here. And they lying, and they know they are. That slave trade story was told to us in reverse. We did not come from Africa. They sent our ancestors to Africa. I got the documents. They documented everything, y'all. You can look at the voyages and see if that was your ancestors that came off of those boats. No, you're going to realize that it wasn't your ancestors. It was nothing but pale faces from Europe and Africa. That's documented. I ain't got no reason to lie to you. You don't believe me? Good. Go look it up. And I'm not talking about Google. Go start traveling. Stop listening to Google. Google lying, telling you that Gondwana happened millions of years ago. It's still here. The movie with Black Panther telling you Wakanda in Africa. In Africa? Are you serious? I can name 8 different tribes that use that same terminology. That means a higher spirit. Right now. That means God. Y'all gotta listen to that. And that logo that I have on my videos is the same bird. Look, let me stop. Hold. Let me stop right there. I gotta go, brother.
Just showing all that. Like our tribes and shit. Look at our star maps. Our shit way different. Way different. The crane on one leg like a crane. Yeah. The crane stands in the water observing the world above the waterline because the crane observes the outside world. The crane clan is known as the outside chief. They call it the whole clan a chief, not just one person. Because one clan is an eye. Before you assume the all-seeing eye position, you got to know how all these eyes work. And we knew, but now it's different. Shout out bro too, and realism and ufology. And this is a branch of that because it got niggas lost. Well, Dane say it got Niji's lost. Well, bro say it got Naga lost. So that's by the stories, the cosmologies, mythologies. We know we connected, but it was just some people who just didn't like being it. They like the other part of you. This is why the quantum physics, or what they call it now, that shit is deep. Like I said, W.E.B. Du Bois taking this idea, because I'm saying parallel universes. Then you got Marcus Garvey. Then you got other niggas at the hand. Then you got Martin Luther King. Then you got all that. It's like, god damn. Check this. Let's watch this real fast. Or no, I could do this. Do this. Police be on it. I was like, damn, bro. It's amazing how people are just programmed to just be assholes. Yeah, I watching all of that just summed it up. I'm just like, bro, clearly some people don't know about this. Clearly some people don't know about that. And why people are doing that. Because James Smalls used to be a foundational black American. Then he became Pan African. Crazy. It be like niggas be scared. Like they be scared to make the wrong choice. So they convert back because they didn't do enough research at first. They just regurgitating what niggas saying and shit. All right, man. I'm leaning over. Uh, uh, uh. If this what is keeping us in the Mandela effect type, shit's crazy. Oh,
of universes and infinite parallel universes constantly being created. Is literally flow of reality and time as we know it. So technically there's a universe in which God can exist, right? So like as your book suggests, God is everything because of E equals MC squared. Literally, God is within and can be everything. But then again, if there's an infinite number of parallel universes, there is an infinite possibility that there's a parallel universe in which God does not exist or is more powerful. In other words, can God create an unliftable?
you hear that? Yes. This is what the ancients used to say, because they understood what they was looking at. If energy cannot cease to exist, but switches form, then that means pretty much you can learn about everything on this planet if it's taught surface enough for me to understand it, and then I can run experiments and do it myself, have students or followers or whatever. So I'm saying that thought of being from a place that you have never been to, you getting farther away from yourself, because it's like the kid just said, if all of these potentials play out, if my thoughts are more centered on me, I would make decisions that wouldn't hurt my future self. They would be more planned out, more precise. So with somebody feeding me information that ain't tangible, that I can't use, but in physical appearance, I'm looking like it, but I know nothing of it, and it's not my. This how they keep it going. Listen,
Stone or object. If so, then God should not be able to lift it. But if God is truly powerful, then he should be able to lift it, and therefore he can't create an unliftable stone. So that's a paradox right there.
and if you know how paradoxes work, you wouldn't let a lie control it because you want the best outcomes. So you will want the truth so you can measure in in accuracy. It's just like in carpentry or architect, you measure 2 times, cut once, ain't it? Yeah, you measure 2 times, cut once. But dealing with nature or organic is cutting once, and that's it. That's nature, not us. We are of nature. We not nature. We learn from nature. So if I learn to cut once from nature, then here twice. Y'all get it.
Anyway, but the point about that is that that means that there is a power that is greater than God. And considering that there is an infinite number of vibrations and therefore an infinite number of realities within our dimensional space, or I guess alter.
It's still like the potential of having the wrong information and doing the wrong shit. You potentially could have an awakening, and you potentially couldn't. But they edging more on the potentially couldn't, so they're throwing things in the game that's throwing rope shit on your road, your path that you going, throwing shit all on your shit. Cause you gotta now you gotta dig through more shit, climb through more shit, dissect it, wipe it off, make sure this is it, do that.
Interdimensional space, considering that they're either higher or lower, still in the same confined space. There is an infinite number of parallel realities with an infinite number of parallel dimensions that actually can create a powerful or a less powerful form of God equals MC squared as we know it. Unfortunately, though, this is a paradox, quite how we encounter one with Aleph Null. In other words, imagine a line, right? And then from that line, you put a smaller line that is a fraction of that is fracture closer to the original line, and then the same thing for that line, the same thing for that. Eventually you'll end up with this triangle shape, and that triangle shape is infinity technically in a confined space. Now, of course, infinity can't really be put in a confined space, but imagine it. One second.
So like the out of Africa theory, the truth is still circulating around in our realm. It's just still the same. The potential of it growing to be some other shit is possible or negative. It depending on what the people doing, how they living. Do we care? Is it affecting people? Yes, now it's affecting people. So now we do have to speak up. Like you said, that Africa theory is now a parallel universe to our universe because you got some people putting it on a screen like it's the truth when it's a lie. So then you got Pokemon or Pokemon. You got Berenstein, you got Berenstein, you got man, they gonna do it. They gonna say something about magic mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall. You confusing the reality now. Instead of just letting it grow and progress and be what it be.
Okay, we're finding science
Right.
demonstration material here.
Mom, do you have a marker? I have a pen already. It's working. Anyway, so imagine it like this, right? There's one line, and then a fraction closer, and a fraction smaller is the next line, and then a fraction closer and a fraction smaller is the next line, so on and so on and so on, till eventually we get this sort of thing. What about like this? Now that's infinity in a confined space because there's nothing here or here, because this is still there. But what happens when you add a line here? Now, that is actually still infinity because it's still in the same place, but it's not in a confined space, you may say. So then what if we do the same thing over here? Well, no matter how much you do it, it is technically still infinity. This quantity is still infinity. And you could do this forever and then do an even bigger version of that, so on and so on. But if you're talking about this,
Relate this to the out of Africa theory. Because the longer it take The longer, listen to me what I'm about to say, the longer it takes you to find God, the more benefit it is for them. And the translation for you finding God is you finding yourself, doing what you do. Be you. Be. You don't even have to do nothing else. Watch this. Hold on. Nah, cause this is really deep. Y'all don't
Called
understand.
Negroes.
Y'all don't understand this back on Dane too. I think it ain't. Be on this shit all the time. Don't know how to work it still. How do I get back to my history? Me. That's it.
For more exclusive content not featured here on my channel, like my books, films, and more, log on to my website at danemakeyouthink.com. So now let's go to this Easter egg clipped from one of my exclusive movies called Reversed, which is available to watch now using the link to my website below. At about right here, at this point of the movie, the viewer's attention is focused on a picture that has a lot going on, to say the very least. So I'll give you a few just to take it all in. Now tell me, what do you see in this picture? You may have noticed that the people who are depicted in this image are of a dark hue in complexion. And you will find that some of the people are wearing feathered headdresses, with the feathers pointing to the sky and not the ground. A few are also seen here wearing wraps or turbans. One of them is seen carrying arrows on his back and holding a bow in his right. The reason why they don't want you to look into
He about to show. He Dane Calloway about to show how they replaced a story. Right? We had a woman, like you say, a woman as the creator. Like when sperm go to an egg, they have to go to an egg, right? They going to her egg. You see, they going to her egg. Only one is gonna have the magnitude to penetrate on impact. Hear what I just said? Only one is gonna have the magnitude to penetrate on impact, creating a spark. Hence why the great mother is right there. What we call her. Will of life had a man. She just in the cycle of life. Just recycling. This how it go. But watch what Dane gonna point out. They replacing our figures, our mothers with alien gods and shit, and with shit that can't do nothing she do. We looking at the powers, the cycle of life. We ain't tripping on none of that other immature shit.
And here's what I mean by that. For example, as of May 13th, 2015, the Virginia Historical Society claims that
I'm gonna wrap it up here in a second too.
quote, in 1671, the Amsterdam printer Jacob Moores published America by Arnoldus Montanus, a compilation in Dutch of historical accounts from North and South America. Montanus was a Jesuit and apparently sought illustrations that emphasized the non-Christian, heathen character of Native American religion. To that end, the unnamed artist for the book invented a Virginia scene that borrowed from images of Mexican Indian practice. This concocted scene was in turn copied by other artists. End quote.
Mexican Indian. Keep that in mind.
Now, some of this is correct, but there are also lots of errors made here concerning their narrow light claims. First of all, Arnoldus Montanus is in fact not the author of this book. He was the cartographer, which is the person responsible for drawing the maps inside of the book. Yes, he was a Jesuit, but that doesn't mean that he was the person responsible for choosing the images used inside of this book. And if the Virginia Historical Society wasn't so lazy at researching, they would have discovered the illustrator's name of these images, who I mentioned earlier as being John White, instead of jumping to their own assumptions, which are royally inaccurate. Or maybe you out there concur with the saying, all things happen for a reason, and you may think that this story was told this way intentionally, which should make you ask some questions. Like, why would the Virginia Historical Society claim that since Montanus was a Jesuit, that he would, quote, apparently sought illustrations that emphasized the non-Christian heathen character of Native American religion, when he wasn't even the illustrator of the image to begin with? And why would the Virginia Historical Society claim that the artist of these images is unnamed, meaning that they don't know his name or anything about him, but then proceed to give their opinions of this same artist as if they now know him by claiming that he, quote, borrowed from images of Mexican Indian practice? Is there really such a thing called a Mexican Indian practice, when the majority of the so-called Mexicans were historically followers of the Catholic Christian practice? The reason why they don't want you to look into the artists is because you will discover what really happened, which was that other artists were later hired to reproduce counterfeit images with European influence of some of these prominent images of North and South American cultures, along with their inhabitants. According to the New York Public Library, the title of this image read as King Powhatan, which is in fact misspelled here by the author, but you'll find that these types of errors are a common thing to happen, especially when dealing with foreigners writing our American history anyways.
Oh my goodness.
Where the Virginia Historical Society claims in 2015 that White borrowed from images of Mexican Indian practice? They are referring to the large statue-like figure you see here, smoking from a large pipe in ceremony, which is an actual representation of the spiritual guardian known as Kawasa by the indigenous Algonquin-speaking people located throughout the southernmost regions of North America, like Virginia, Maryland, and the Carolinas, just to name a few.
Just to name a few. The people who read up on it from these people stupid clan fat. Clans going from here to Georgia and I mean, yeah, KC, Kansas City. So all these people, bro, being misplaced ain't did nothing. Y'all lying. What y'all gotta lie on these people for?
But prior to this 1590 watercolor painting by John White being borrowed for the use of John Ogilvy's book in 1671, it was also borrowed but fraudulently reproduced by engraver and publisher Theodore de Bry to look like this, with the release of a book that he published for author Thomas Harriot during the year 1590. Indeed, there's something wrong with this image, all the way down to the German text utilized surrounding the image itself. This
Weird nigga shit. Weird. And then we got people adopting all this shit too. Bro, it make you shake your head, it piss you off. Especially when you these people. But shout out to all these people, man, going through their learning experiences or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? But we do have to realize that idolatry and all this shit is heavy. But you are in control. Like we don't have to indulge in none of this shit. Be the true overseers, you know what I'm saying? But I guess it take practice. I guess it take you being tired of this shit. It take you an infinite amount of focus to just do shit like this. Hey, cause look, it's the same way people wonder how people do it, and people tell them it might sound simple and shit, but them is just the words. The feeling of wanting to know. It's like you can be close to mastery and still don't know it. That's what make it like worth. Like I know it's more answers to this, especially on the subject matter, but we way powerful, and I'm out of here.